This video was solely made for the purpose of entertaining your curiosity, and it was not my intention to change or even challenge anyone's views. After doing a little research into the etymology and definition of the word politics, I realized that it is defined in different ways by different people. So the definition I'll share with you in a moment is the one that best describes what I mean when I use the word politics. Politics is the process by which groups of people make collective decisions, manage conflicts, and distribute power and resources within a society. From the very beginning of time, humans have not been able to coexist without conflict. In my opinion, conflict stems from having opinions, views, and beliefs that we regard as correct, and from acting on them while disregarding other people's opinions, views, and beliefs. We regard our opinions, views, and beliefs as correct because we form them through experiences which cannot really be labeled as either correct or incorrect. Because of our nature, we tend to surround ourselves with people who share the same opinions, views, and beliefs. We also actively look for evidence that reinforces those opinions, views, and beliefs while disregarding facts that would challenge them. Let's use dogs as an example to illustrate my theory. I got bitten by 2 dogs that I remember in my life so far, so naturally I came to believe that dogs are dangerous. All dogs, no exception. One day I happened to share this opinion with an acquaintance who told me that I needed to educate myself because not all dogs are dangerous. In fact, their opinion was that most dogs are not dangerous and that I was simply ignorant. I told them that the last dog that bit me broke loose from its leash and started an altercation with what seemed to be a dozen stray dogs, and when I tried to help it get away, it jumped me and nearly took my index off. This acquaintance lives in the city, whereas I live in the countryside, which means that according to some people, their opinions are progressive while mine are regressive. Their views are supposedly based on science, while mine are supposedly based on fairy tales. Because we all know that having progressive views is considered the only correct mindset. Naturally, based on my experiences, I believe that dogs shouldn't be allowed to roam freely through the streets, especially breeds that are known to be dangerous. But based on their experiences, my acquaintance believes that dogs should not be kept in captivity because they deserve the right to freedom just like humans do. Since neither of us was willing to concede our viewpoint, we decided to involve a third party to settle the dispute. A third party whom we both regarded as unbiased and mutually agreed upon. And this is how I believe politics was born. Different people had different grievances, and the way they saw fit to resolve them at the dawn of time was by appointing members of their community whom they considered wise enough to deal with those issues. That sounds completely fair to me because that governing authority was made up of ordinary people from the tribe, people who are known to everyone and who could be held accountable. But life requires the consumption of other forms of life in order to sustain itself, and the consumption of resources in order to make life more comfortable or bearable. What happened next, and where it stops making sense to me, is that tribes began growing larger, and with that growth came an increasing desire for power and control in some people's minds. Tribes began conquering other tribes for their resources, and the conquered were forced to live according to the rules of the conquerors. Slowly, tribes became chiefdoms, chiefdoms became cities, cities became kingdoms, and kingdoms became empires. The rise and fall of these structures eventually gave us the modern-day state or country with its accompanying politics. We're all born with desires whose fulfillment infringes on other people's freedom in one way or another. Let's say I desire a peaceful life where it is completely silent throughout both day and night. That's virtually impossible without denying people around me the right to make any noise. So we're forced to tolerate behaviors that we don't necessarily want to tolerate simply because that's the custom of the societies we were born into. Customs shaped through policies dictated by, you guessed it, politics. But at what point does tolerating other people's behavior become intolerant of ourselves? I'm not going to discuss totalitarian regimes because they probably only make sense to the people who benefit from them. and those people are always a select few. In democratic regimes, policies are created by politicians who are elected through a free democratic vote, or at least that's what we're led to believe. Because even if none of the people on the ballot meet our expectations, we're still expected to cast a vote, and someone eventually will be elected. Is the vote really free then? What if I personally don't want anyone dictating how I live, and I don't want to dictate how anyone else lives? Is there a place in this world where I can live that way? Democracy means the power of the people, so what's democratic about having policies and laws that you disagree with imposed on you simply because the politician you disagree with convinced more people to vote for them than the politician you support? Is it really fair that a vote of someone who has studied politics and economics extensively carries the same weight as the vote of someone who can barely read? In order to be elected, politicians claim to have our best interests at heart and promise to govern society in the way that best serves the citizen. But that rhetoric goes out the window as soon as they're sworn into office. Most politicians, in my view, use politics for their personal gain. For my part, I have never heard of a politician leaving office worse off than when they entered it. To me, democracy means trusting that the person you voted for will keep their promises once in office or step down if they fail to deliver on what they promised. And politics to me is simply a group of people, some of whom are corrupt, fighting one another over what they claim is their constituents' best interests while creating policies and laws to uphold those claims. And that's why politics doesn't make sense to me.